mentioned. The rate setting process should at a minimum include the following steps: defining what your service or product is, determining your user base, measuring or estimating usage, determining operating costs, allocating those costs for each use, and then setting the rate. So we'll walk through each of these. I went through quickly there, but we'll go through each in a step-by-step manner. Step one, define the product or service. So although this may seem very fundamental, if you open up a service center, you would arguably know what you're doing or what you plan to be doing. But it's important to actually determine what service or services you're going to provide. You may have a group of experts in a service setting who can help out in a number of ways. I've seen this firsthand where someone said, well, we help out in 2 different ways, but their rate schedule really didn't match that at all. So they were trying to shoehorn different services in for kind of a generalized support. So it's important to know when that service may just be general and billed by the hour, or something more standardized and billed on a per service basis. It's also important to understand if services and needs have shifted. So maybe you have a new service that doesn't fall into any of the old categories you had before, or maybe an old service you describe really isn't representative of what you're really doing anymore. You have things have changed. Equipment is no longer the same equipment. You need to define the services up front and on an annual basis, frankly, to define how you're going to track activity and recover costs. For a genome sequencing facility, the services would be genome sequencing. It's pretty straightforward. For a machine shop, it might be general consulting services or prototype development. And for the former, it might be an allocation of hours. For the latter, it might include an accounting of hours and raw materials and a supply component. And for IT services, it could be space for equipment, time on the system, or technical support labor. Some of these service arrangements can get fairly intricate, and so we can't really get into the details of all of those. But in a few minutes, we will go into a more straightforward example to examine rate setting for the first bullet, which is a microscopy facility or a microscope lab. Earlier, a couple slides earlier, we discussed estimating your usage. As part of that exercise, you need to understand who your users are. Are they internal, external, researchers, students? How much volume will they really need? And can it be predicted based on history or surveying those groups? It's especially important to understand the external users, since you need to make sure you're recovering your full costs. If someone without a university account or faculty acting in a private capacity uses the service, there are no grants being charged and no F&A being generated. And some institutions are very strict about allowing any external users. One school I know actually requires approvals for any outside users. For that reason, when external users are allowed, many institutions charge external users at least the per unit cost plus the institution's negotiated F&A rate. This would theoretically include any user without an internal account.